Hey, so if you've ever worked at a small business before, you know how much of the company just lives in people's heads, right? You go to one job site and you take care of things there, and then you go back to the office and you take care of a few other things, and all those processes don't
It's
really live
35.
anywhere. They just kind of live in your head, or they live in your coworkers' heads. You don't really know what anybody else is doing. And small businesses tend to be like that because, well, everyone's got to wear a bunch of hats, right? Everyone needs to know how to do a whole bunch of things. And it's very often that the right hand doesn't quite know what the left hand is doing, which can lead to confusion. As Sir Topham Hatt likes to say, confusion and delay. My 3-year-old really likes Thomas the Train right now, and confusion and delay is what we want to avoid. And one way that we can get all the parts of our body, of our company, syncing together is by sharing information instead of having separate information silos. An information silo is like if your right hand had a brain and your left hand had a brain and neither of them ever talked to each other and they just kind of did their own thing. Those would be information silos. And what we want is for our company to be able to all work together as a unified system, the way that our body is a system with a brain and a nervous system that is constantly feeding back to one another and helping each other. And one way that we are trying to combat these information silos is a thing called documentation. Now, documentation often gets out of date very quickly. If you don't use it very often, you're not updating it on a regular basis. And so we at our company are trying an experiment this quarter to gamify our documentation process, to make it into a little bit of a competition. And one tool that we're going to use to do that is Coda, which, if you've never used it before, is kind of like Google Docs on steroids. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how we are using Coda to gamify our documentation process, beat those information silos, and help us as a company to understand how everything operates, get things down on paper or in the cloud, as it were, and help one another to understand and be able to pick up where the other leaves off in case somebody has multiple jobs to do in a day. Other people can pick up and help. So here is Coda, and this is their Canvas interface. As I said, Coda is kind of like Google Sheets on steroids, and the reason that I say that is because it's you have the ability to take a number of different tables and put them together and put them all into a document, and it's all kind of seamless. And I'll kind of demonstrate what that looks like here. This is a Coda document, and I'm going to title it Documentation Madness. We're calling this Documentation Madness because it is, it's now April. It was March when we came up with this, and March Madness was going. I think the tournament's over as of today, but hey, whatever. And how we wanted to structure this was that you get points, right? You get I think we decided you get 5 points for writing documentation that gets reviewed by a peer and accepted. And then 10 points for recording a video that gets watched. So, well, I don't think we said gets watched or we're recording a video. We'll have to come up with the rules a little bit and tweak it. And so what I'd like to happen is for each of our team members to be able to come to this page and hit a button if they have done one of the above tasks, and then to keep track of score in a big scoreboard. And so without further ado, I'm going to really dive into how I'm going to build this document. This is actually a perfect use case for Coda because they allow you to have buttons. They give you a way to create a database and to display that data. It's really cool. So I'm going to create a table by typing /table, and very similar to other of these knowledge-based softwares, you can embed data right into your document. I'm going to call this scoreboard or scores, if I can spell. And here I'm going to have a few columns. The user, or the person, I guess we'll call the player, because we're all playing here. And this is going to be a people. Users are first class objects in these databases, so you can actually have users be parts of your document. And then here we're just going to have date. So which date? Actually, let's call it date and time. And this is going to be a time, or date and time. This will be the activity, which will be one of these two things. So because we're choosing from a list of options, this will be a select list. And I'll have two options, written and video. And then I want there to be points. So let's say that when I finish this, I will go ahead and put this information in. It's about, what time is it? About 8:50. Let's say I just write this in at 9:30, and the player is me. The activity is a video that I'm making, and well, it's going to be 10 points. This information can go into a summary, right? So I could create a table that is a scoreboard. And here I can have the player, and I can have their total points. And the nice thing about Coda is that these tables can talk to each other. So if I put myself here, this needs to be a people column, and I put myself here, I can actually total up the points in this other table by using something called formulas. Every time that I want to total information or bring in information from other parts of the document or other parts of this table, I can hit equals, and it will bring up a formula for the column. Here, what I want to do is go across all the scores, and then take the points column and sum them up. Now, this is really nice. I've got 10 points here, and let's say tomorrow I do something. Maybe I put in a written activity. Now, my total points are 15. Of course, we've got a little problem here, and that's that all of the points from the board, regardless of who the player is, are showing up here. So I'm going to just rewrite this formula, and instead of doing all the scores, I'm going to filter the scores by the player. And what I want in this filter is I want the player from the scores table, which is green, to be the player from this table. You see that they're a different color. Let's say this row, that player, it turns purple. So I want the purple player from the purple table to be the green player from the green table. And that will only give me the rows for this cell that match this criteria. And I'll say I want this points from those rows, and I want them summed up. So now I have a scoreboard that has only one player, but it is accurately reflecting my points. So let's say I bring in another player. I want to invite my colleague if they are on here. This is my colleague who I'm adding. Let's say now he's in here, and I want for him to, or or he logs something, and I'm just going to make sure that people don't get notified here when they get added, because that is a nice feature on Coda where you can notify people when they get added to the doc, but really don't need to do that here. And let's say he writes some documentation, he gets 5 points. If I come over here and put him into this table, I can see now that he's got 5 points, I've got 15 points. And so, yeah, this is the basics of how we want to keep track of our the scores in our little game of documentation. Now, this is kind of nice, right? But unfortunately, this is a lot of work, right? If I want to log something, I gotta come in here, I gotta write the date, I gotta, put who it is, I gotta type in what kind of activity it is, I gotta manually put in the points. This is all things that I don't really like, and so what I want to automate here is, number one, I want to be able to automate the date and time to be when I create my score. I want to automate, or I want the player to be the person who is logging things, because everyone should be logging their own stuff. I want the activity, I want the points to auto-populate based on activity. So we'll handle each one of these in turn. They're all fairly simple. To automate the date and time to be when I create my score, that's actually an option right here in the date and time options. Value for new rows. So they actually have a date and time created where I can just click that, and it will automatically make the date and time row, or make the date and time cell be the time when I created this row. So now if I make a new row, I don't have to type anything in, which is nice. Now I can go back and change it. This is not a formula, it's an initial value. Those are two different things. But because this is just an initial value and this is not a formula column, it will just be this when you start it, and it can stay like this. You can change it if you want. But this satisfies this, right? So this is done. I'm just going to strike that through, Command-Shift-K, that's keyboard shortcut. For player, again, the value for new rows, I can do current user and apply it to 2 blank rows, and it automatically knows that, hey, this was David who put this in. Now if my other friend David O, comes here and puts in a new row, it will have him instead of me. Now finally, let's say I make a written video. I don't really want to have to type in these values, and so what I want to do is assign a value to video and then assign a value to written and just kind of be done with it. So I'm going to actually turn this select list. Let's go to our select list options. I'm going to convert this to a table. I'm going to call this activities. And I'm going to give each of these a score. This will be a number, and written is going to be worth 5, video is going to be worth 10. You can see that they've formatted these colors for me, which is kind of nice. And now this is now going to be a lookup on this table. So what is in here is actually a reference to this row. And what that means is that I can now create a formula on points to say, hey, look at this row and figure out and take this score and put it here. So I'm going to turn this into a formula and say, look at activity, this row dot activity, or if I just want, because Coda is pretty smart, it'll usually guess the first time what you want. So I'm just going to say activity, and it'll automatically be green and automatically be the activity in this particular row. And from that activity, I'm going to grab the score. And so now I have all of these points that are based on these activities. And if I made a mistake, this one wasn't actually written, this was a video, now I can change that and it will automatically update how many points I've got. So this is super powerful. This gives us the flexibility.
It's 9 o'clock.
To be able to put all kinds of options in here and assign them scores and not have to worry about manually entering in points. And they actually won't even let you manually enter points because this is now a formula column. So if a column is determined by a formula, you can't actually physically or manually edit the cells. Finally, for this notes column, I think what I'm going to do is turn it into a text. And I'm just going to make sure that I write that this was a documentation madness Coda video. And I could go through here and make note of each thing that has been done so that we all know what those things are instead of just relying on this thing. I think what we may want to do at some point would be to get real sophisticated and do things like links and stuff like that. But honestly, I don't really care that much. All I really care about is that this stuff is getting done. So anyway, yeah, Command-Shift-K to strike that through. Command-Shift-K, strike that through. So we're done. We have automated all these things. And this is now going to keep track of score very easily, I'd say. But we don't have any buttons. This is all very manual. You got to go down here to the scores, write all this stuff down. I'm not a super big fan of that. And so what I'd like to do instead is to have a button. So I'm going to make a button here by typing button. And this button should be for if they wrote documentation. So I'm just going to call this I wrote documentation, or yeah, you know what? Let's just do that. That's fine. I wrote documentation. And what this button is going to do is log a score. And a score here is just a row in the scores table. So I'm going to select action. I'm going to say add row. And I'm going to say scores. And date and time and player will be automatically set. And so all I really need to do is set the activity to be video. And because it's a reference to a row, I'm probably going to have to, oh, yeah, there. I hit equals, and it already knows the type of activity are rows on the activities table, so it just gives me these choices, which is great. Love how Coda does that. And I'm going to hit enter. Oh, but actually what I want is written because I said I was writing things, didn't I? And I do want to open the row for editing because I want people to log exactly what it was that they did. And I like this to be a big green button, and I'm going to add a little written thing. So yeah. Now if I go ahead and click this, it will log this information and open up this notes thing. Now this is a very confusing interface because, well, the biggest thing is this date on here. It's got all this information. This is just way too confusing. I'm just going to make a new layout, and I'm going to edit this layout, and I'm going to call it button hit layout. And I'm actually going to hide most of this stuff because I don't really want people to be thinking about, who am I, or the date and time. I don't want them modifying that. What I do want them to do is say, write down what exactly you did. And so, you know what? Let's just what would you say it is you did here? So this layout will look like this now, which means that instead of saying notes, I'm gonna call this details just so that it doesn't get confused with activity. Details, what would you say it is you did here? And yeah, now if I go ahead and hit this button, it'll show this and ask for details. And you know what? I even want this to get filled in, or to have some information in here, just some instructions. Please fill me in. So now when I hit the button, it will say, please fill me in. And so I will know very quickly if somebody didn't actually write that, because it'll just say, please fill me in, which is not what we want, right? So yeah, I have a documentation button, and I also want to have a button, a similar button for recording a video. Let's say let's say uploaded a video, because just recording is not okay. We have to upload it in order for it to get out of our brains and information silos into other people's brains. And instead of written activity, I'm going to have video activity. Again, it'll say, please fill me in. And when I click it, it'll have the same layout. And that will do it. So if I go ahead and click, I uploaded a video, it will increase the number of points, which is great. And well, let's make this a little different color. We'll call it red. Let's make it very large, because large buttons are the best kinds of buttons. And do this one too. It doesn't want to, there it goes. And then I'll even just kind of do these off to the side so that we kind of center these. They look real nice and large and cool and all that stuff. And yeah, let's see here. How can I display our scoreboard better? I'm not sure that I can. It doesn't look like I'm going to be able to, which is fine. But what I can do is possibly make this text much larger. But you know what? I'm not going to worry about that right now, because I could get into that and formatting and all that stuff. It would take forever. But yeah, this is done. Command-Shift-K, strike through. And the points are now taken care of. So there you go. This is our doc. Now, this is a little bit ugly, so I'm just gonna move all this data onto a raw page, or another data page here, so that we're not just clogging this place up. This gets very clean. Now, there is one concern that I do have is, let's say I hit a button, I screw up, I didn't mean to do that. You know, how can I go and fix it? I think probably the easiest way to do it is just going to be to come over here and you know, tell people to come over here and update things. In order to facilitate that, I'm just going to sort this table. I'm going to sort it by date and time descending. That means the latest date comes first. You can see that the later date comes before, the later times come before, come at the top. And I'm also going to have an option to be able to filter with this filter bar. And filtering by the date and time doesn't really make a lot of sense. Filtering by activity doesn't really make sense either in this case. What I do want to filter on is the player, right? So if I want to look at this and I want to make sure that I'm only looking at my stuff, I can see this here. And in fact, what we could do is create a view of this where people can only see their own stuff. In fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go ahead and say my score sheet. And if you have to edit things, you'll just come to my score sheet. And what I'm going to do is make a linked view of the scores. And just call it my score sheet. And you'll see that this is the exact same information as here. And if I edit something on here, say hello, it will also edit it here. So these pieces of data are linked. But the power of being able to have these linked views where scores and my score sheet are related to each other, I can see that by just clicking this link here, is that I can create views on this on this data that is customizable and is more relevant to this function, that function. In this case, I can make a view that is only of items that are relevant to me or that I created, so that I don't accidentally go and modify other people's stuff. In fact, I can even hide this page and make it harder, not impossible, but harder for people to screw up other people's stuff. So I'm just going to call this a sheet. Let's see what happens here. Let's call it scores instead. See if we can find a nice icon. Okay, that's cool. Documentation madness. I like that guy playing basketball. Oh wait, no, that's football. Let's do basketball, even though NCAA season is over. So yeah. Now, if I go to my score sheet, I can see everything that was created by me. And if I want to see things that are underneath, I can go to Show Hidden Pages. And now I can see this data page where I've got all of the raw information. So yeah, that was a quick overview of how to put together a gamification page for documentation to fight information silos. Get that information, get your company, get your information out of your head, out of the right hand brain, left hand brain, and into the rest of the body, into the rest of the company, so that all of us are all able to thrive more. Yeah, thanks for bearing with me and watching this process. Hopefully it was helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks. Bye.